Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. A belated Happy New Year to everyone. This is my first video recorded in 2026, so I wanted to wish you guys all a Happy New Year before it's no longer January. So there's a lot of stuff coming up in 2026, so today I just wanted to mention a few missions that I am particularly looking forward to this year. Some of which I have no doubt that you know about, and some of which maybe you don't. So for today's video, let's take a look at my I feel like 5 is a good number. My 5 space missions to watch in 2026. Coming in at number 1, the Gaganyaan 1 mission. This mission, which is due to be launched, I think in March 2026, is by the ISRO, or the Indian Space Research Organization, the National Space Agency for India. And what's exciting about this mission is that India would join a very exclusive space club by the success of this mission. In the 1960s, only the US and the Soviet Union had the capacity and were indeed sending human beings into space. It took another 40 years for another country, China, to join that club. And to this date, that number still stands at 3. Just 3 space agencies have sent people into space. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that only people from 3 countries have gone into space. Astronauts and citizens from well over 50 countries, I think, have gone into space, but they have all hitched a ride on either a US, a Russian, or a Chinese vehicle. But India is looking to change that. It's poised to launch its 3-person Gaganyaan 1 spacecraft atop a human-rated version of its powerful HL-VM-3 rocket as early as March 2026. Now, this first mission will be an uncrewed test flight, mimicking the steps that the US and the Soviet Union took when they were initially testing their Mercury and Vostok spacecraft. When the US did their uncrewed test flight, they sent up an instrument package to measure the vibration and G-loads and other forces that would affect an astronaut. When the Soviets did it, they famously sent a mannequin, nicknamed Ivan Ivanovich, that tested the cosmonauts' pressure suits. India is going with the Soviet option, and Gaganyaan 1 will be carrying a similar humanoid robot named Vyomitra. This flight will be the first of 3 uncrewed missions before India launches a crew of Vyomanauts as early as 2027. And yes, much like astronauts or cosmonauts, Vyomanauts are Indian astronauts, named after the Sanskrit word Vyoma, which means sky or space. And everyone having their own cool word for astronaut is just one of my favorite things about space. When the time comes to send actual people, the crew of 4 who have already been selected from the nation's elite flyers will spend a minimum of 3 days in space, inside a Gaganyaan 1 crew compartment that will keep them comfortable but a bit cramped, with a habitable volume of about the size of an SUV. But first, they are looking for success in this Gaganyaan 1 mission, which I am looking forward to in 2026. Number 2, the Haven 1 Space Station Module. As we talked a bunch about on this channel last year, the ISS has been doing the Lord's work up in space for about 25 years now. But its time is very sadly coming to an end, and there are plans to deorbit the ISS about 2030, 2031. And what will replace ISS, or even begin to replace the ISS, has been a subject of discussion for a long time. And there has been a lot of talk about private space stations that could begin to fill this void left in low Earth orbit. And the Haven 1 space station, built by the aerospace company VAST, is one such option. In 2021, NASA launched the Commercial Low Earth Development Program, partnering with industry to build and launch private space stations to begin to replace ISS. Many companies, including Blue Origin and Axiom Space, signed on with this program, including VAST, which is actually based in Long Beach, California. And it turns out that VAST might be the first one ready to go. As early as May 2026, VAST plans to launch the Haven 1 space station and have it crewed by a staff of 4 barely a month later. Haven 1 is designed to be a comfortable, livable ship with private sleeping quarters for each astronaut, high-speed internet, a fold-down dining table for communal meals, and a large domed window to provide constant views of the Earth below. But it is also much more modest than the ISS. Consisting of just a single bus-sized module, it provides about 45 cubic meters of habitable volume, about a ninth of ISS. At first, crews will spend just about 2 weeks per rotation, which is barely enough time to unpack compared to the year or more that some astronauts live aboard the ISS. But VAST says this is just how they're going to start things out. By 2030, it hopes to have launched 5 more interconnected modules that will expand the station's lab and crew capacities and provide a destination for paying customers from both the government and the private sector. Because space, as they see it, is increasingly becoming a place not just to visit, but to live. Number 3, the return of the Boeing Starliner. So yes, despite everything that has gone on with Starliner, I am looking forward to her possible return. Now, as we all likely remember, NASA paid Boeing big money back in 2014 to build a vehicle to carry astronauts to and from the ISS. And actually, they cut 2 big checks that day. One to Boeing for $4.2 billion and one to SpaceX for $2.6 billion. Now that SpaceX investment, has to be said, did pay off. Since 2020, the company's Crew Dragon spacecraft has carried 19 crews to space, most of them traveling to the ISS. And Boeing Starliner, not so much. It wasn't until June 2024 that the spacecraft carried its first crew, NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams, for a mission that was supposed to last 8 days but turned into 9 months, with Starliner being forced to return uncrewed and Butch and Sunny hitching a ride aboard SpaceX's Dragon capsule. Burn. But Starliner is back. For the past year, Boeing has been troubleshooting Starliner's thrusters, and in November 2025, NASA announced that Starliner would be once again trusted to fly. In April of 2026, it will attempt an uncrewed run to the ISS, both to deliver cargo and to determine if it is safe to resume crewed missions. Now, I'm definitely hoping for Starliner's redemption story, but experts say that even if Starliner is able to jump back into the flight rotation, it is unlikely to ever really be seen as one of NASA's better bets. The original contract called for 6 crewed missions to and from the station. In its November announcement, NASA revealed that the 2 parties had mutually agreed to modify the contract, cutting that number to 4, with an option for the final 2 flights remaining open, depending on the ship's performance. And with ISS deorbiting in 2030, many think that the Starliner program will come back down to Earth with it. Number 4, the Griffin 1 lunar lander and rover. So the moon has once again become a focal point for space exploration. And while the US has been pretty obsessed with sending rovers to Mars time and time again, not so much with the moon. But this may change around July 2026, when Astrobotic and Astrolab will team up to send a golf cart-sized rover to the moon's south pole. FLIP, which stands for Flex Lunar Innovation Program, is part of a NASA initiative to enlist the private sector to design and build rovers that the space agency will lease as part of its Artemis program. And Astrobotic and Astrolab have built one of the first rovers ready to be launched. FLIP is equipped with 4 wheels mounted on casters that allow it to make what are called zero-point turns, rotating in place in a tight pivot rather than having to drive in wide circles to reverse course. It has an infrared guidance system that allows it to detect and steer around obstacles, driving semi-autonomously, with NASA simply having to give it a destination and allowing the rover to find its own way there. And this rover is just step 1 for these 2 companies. Next on the manifest is the larger 6-foot-tall Flex rover. The FLEX rover, which stands for Flexible Logistics and Exploration, is big enough to carry more than 3,000 pounds of payload and convey a crew of 2 astronauts across the surface. Now, a firm launch date for FLEX has not yet been announced, but they're kind of looking at 2028. And that actually fits nicely with NASA's plans for having the Artemis astronauts on the surface of the moon by the end of the decade. Because when the crew arrives, potentially their ride could be waiting. And finally, at number 5, the Artemis 2 mission. Now, we've mentioned Artemis 2 a number of times on this channel, but I'd be remiss if I didn't add it to my 2026 list. Now, obviously, this one has been getting a lot of press because it marks not only the return of a crewed lunar mission for the first time in a long time, but also will be flying in a brand new Orion spacecraft. Americans Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Cook, and Canadian Jeremy Hansen will launch atop a brand new Space Launch System rocket as early as February 2026, and the crew will embark on a 10-day translunar journey that will take them farther from Earth than any humans have ever traveled. And as I've covered before, Artemis 2 will not be landing on the moon. It won't even be orbiting the moon, but it will instead make a looping swing around its far side before lunar gravity takes hold of the ship and slingshots it back home. And it's actually kind of a similar route that Apollo 13 took in 1970, but that was not exactly intentional. Apollo 13 went about 158 miles beyond the far side of the moon. Artemis 2 will be traveling a whopping 4,700 miles beyond the lunar backside. From that distance, the crew will be able to take dramatic new photographs of the sphere of the Earth and the sphere of the moon in the same frame. So while I know this mission does get a lot of play, I can't help but be excited by all these firsts. It's a lot of firsts. And it's also probably the first crewed launch that I will see this year. Now, obviously, these are not the only missions set to fly in 2026. Blue Origin's Blue Moon is planning to lift off atop the New Glenn rocket, and I think there's a new telescope that's ready to launch, but these are just some of the ones that I'm excited about. But what do you guys think? Are you particularly excited by any one of these missions, or are you excited by a mission that I did not mention here? Please let me know in the comments below. I feel like I've said the year 2026 a lot in the last couple of years on this channel, so now I'm like, we're finally here. Come on, 2026. Let's see what you got. So many new things, and I, for one, will definitely be watching. Okay, that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and as always, I will see you in the next video.